Russell and Walt were itching to fight. It was the summer of 1918, and for two 16-year-olds, getting into a uniform was all that mattered. The whole country was seized by war fever. Young men across America flocked to sign up. A year after America had finally entered the Great War, a patriotic frenzy filled the air. Posters plastered around the country showed Uncle Sam declaring, "I want you." Everyone was singing, "The Yanks are coming," the words to the hit tune "Over There" by America's most popular song and dance man, George M. Cohan. American soldiers had proudly marched into Paris. The Navy promised adventure and a chance to beat back the Germans, who were disparaged as barbaric Huns in the American press and government posters. Walt's older brother Ray had been drafted into the Army and wrote how exciting life was in training camp. Another brother, Roy, had enlisted in the Navy and was stationed at the Great Lakes Naval Station near Chicago. Like many young Americans, Walt saw going to war as a great quest, the stuff of heroes. He was fired up to do his part to defeat the dreaded Huns. He wasn't a slacker. Walt yearned to be over there in full Army gear. Like many young Americans, Walt thought he would look swell in a uniform. Russell and Walt lied about their ages, but the recruiters in their home city of Chicago took one look at the pair and sent them home disappointed. Then Russell learned that the American Red Cross Ambulance Service accepted 17-year-olds. Their job was to collect wounded men from the battlefield. Another teenager from nearby Oak Park, Illinois, 18-year-old Ernest Hemingway, had joined the ambulance service in May and was serving in Italy, where he was wounded in 1918. Hemingway would turn his wartime experience into his 1929 novel, A Farewell to Arms, about an ambulance driver in Italy during World War I. Some of his short stories also featured Nick Adams and other fictional characters who had been wounded in the war. Still too young even for the ambulance service, 16-year-old Walt was desperate to get into action and needed only parental permission to join the Red Cross if he could prove he was 17. Convincing his mother to sign his enlistment papers, Walt altered his birth certificate, changing his birth date from 1901 to 1900. Soon, he was in uniform. In September 1918, Russell and Walt reported for training at the Red Cross facility in a former amusement park on Chicago's South Side. They would spend a week learning to drive ambulances, another on how to repair and assemble cars, and then 2 weeks on some basic military drills. Walt wouldn't carry a rifle, but after a month's training, he would be ready to head for Europe. But before he completed his training, Walt got sick. Very sick. He was taken home by ambulance. For more than 3 weeks while his mother cared for him, Walt was flat on his back in bed. He had the flu. By then, Russell and the other young men in his ambulance company had completed their course and shipped out to France. When Walt finally got better, he completed his training, and eventually Walt Disney headed over there. Franklin D. Roosevelt was also eager to get into a uniform. A 36-year-old assistant secretary of the Navy, he was a distant cousin to Theodore Roosevelt. The former president had been one of America's biggest boosters of going to war against Germany. In his Navy post, Franklin had been working to modernize and upgrade America's warships as the United States prepared to join the British and French against Germany. Once America declared war in April 1917, Franklin D. Roosevelt decided that he wanted to fight. His cousin, the former president, had fought earlier in the Spanish-American War, emerging as a national combat hero. Theodore Roosevelt went on to become America's youngest president. Franklin had political ambitions of his own. Wartime service, he knew, would be a valuable asset when the time came to run for office. But active service was not to be. In his Navy position, Franklin went on a tour of American trenches in France in the late summer of 1918. After touring battlefields in France and visiting his naval counterparts in Italy, Franklin boarded the Leviathan, a German passenger ship that had been seized and converted to an American troop carrier. While he may have fallen ill before sailing, Franklin D. Roosevelt got very sick during the ocean crossing. When the Leviathan docked, this son of a wealthy New York family was rushed by ambulance to his mother's East 65th Street townhouse and slowly nursed back to health. Ill for weeks, the future president of the United States nearly died. He had the flu.